They mocked the ban on humans, until the footage made the room fall silent. The massive chamber stretched high above the gathered delegates like a cathedral made of light and metal. Representatives from 47 different species filled the curved rows of seats that spiraled upward toward the domed ceiling. Some sat on chairs while others floated in specialized gravity fields. A few existed as pure energy contained within shimmering force fields. This was the Galactic Council, and today they would make a decision that would change everything. Velkoth stood at the center podium. His body was made of living crystal that caught the light and threw rainbow patterns across the polished floor. He was the ambassador from the Kreth species, and his people had been part of the council for over 3,000 years. When he spoke, his voice came out as sharp clicking sounds, but the translator built into the podium converted his words into a language every species could understand. "The motion before us is clear and simple," he said. "We must ban all human involvement in any military operations across the galaxy. This ban will begin immediately and will remain in effect until further notice." Around the chamber, heads nodded in agreement. While some of them nodded, others performed their species' version of showing approval. The floating gas being named Quarash pulsed with bright yellow light, which meant he strongly agreed. "Humans are too emotional," Quarash announced in his whistling voice. "They react based on feelings instead of logic. They start fights over insults to their honor. They take foolish risks to save a single individual when the logical choice is to sacrifice one for the many. We cannot trust such a species with military authority." More agreement rippled through the chamber. The evidence seemed overwhelming. Humanity had joined the galactic community only 30 years ago. In that short time, they had demonstrated over and over that they were impulsive and unpredictable. They refused to follow standard military doctrine. They modified their weapons in ways that violated safety protocols. They questioned orders from superior officers if they disagreed with the tactical reasoning. In the observation section reserved for Earth delegates, Admiral Jake Harrison sat with his hands gripped tight on his armrests. His jaw muscles worked as he ground his teeth together. Next to him, Commander Lisa Morgan maintained a perfectly neutral expression, but her knuckles had gone white from how hard she was, holding onto her seat. "This is insane," Jake whispered, under his breath so only Lisa could hear. "Let them make their mistake," Lisa replied just as quietly. "They will learn soon enough." The vote proceeded with mechanical efficiency. Species after species registered their approval of the ban. When the final tally appeared on the holographic display, the result was crushing. 43 species voted for the ban. Only 2 voted against it. 2 species abstained. Humanity was not allowed to vote on matters concerning their own species, so Jake and Lisa could only watch. "The decision is final," Velkoth announced, with what sounded like satisfaction in his clicking voice. "Humans are hereby prohibited from participating in any military action beyond their home solar system. Earth vessels may continue to engage in trade and diplomacy, but any military operations are strictly forbidden. We do this not out of malice, but out of concern for the greater galactic community." Velkoth turned his crystalline face toward the human section. His eyes glowed with an inner light that was probably meant to look sympathetic. "Please understand, Admiral Harrison, that this decision serves everyone, including humanity. Your species simply needs more time to mature beyond its violent and emotional nature. Perhaps in another century or 2 we can revisit this matter." Jake stood up slowly. His posture was military perfect. His uniform was pressed and crisp. When he spoke, his voice carried clearly across the entire chamber, without any need for the translator to amplify it. "With respect, Ambassador, you are making a serious mistake. You are judging us based on incomplete understanding of who we are and what we are capable of doing. Your objection has been noted," Velkoth replied in a tone that made it clear he had no intention of reconsidering anything. "The decision stands and this session is now concluded." The delegates began filing out of the chamber. Some gave Jake sympathetic looks as they passed. Others deliberately avoided making eye contact. A few made gestures that Jake assumed were their species' version of sneering or looking down on someone. Back at the Earth Embassy compound, Jake called an emergency meeting with his senior staff. They gathered in the secure conference room where no alien listening devices could penetrate. Captain Ryan Brooks arrived first. He was young for a ship captain at only 32 years old, but he had proven himself in the brief conflicts humanity had been involved in since joining the Council. Lieutenant Sophie Adams came next. She handled intelligence gathering, and her network of contacts across multiple species gave Earth an advantage that few knew about. Major Derek Cole was last. He commanded the Marine forces and looked like he wanted to punch something. "They have boxed us completely out," Ryan said as he dropped into a chair. "What happens when the Kreth actually need us and we cannot help them?" "They will never admit they need us," Sophie said while pulling up data on her tablet. "Their pride will not allow it. Not until the situation becomes desperate." Jake activated the holographic projector in the center of the table. A star map appeared showing the outer regions of Council space. Several areas were marked in red. "The frontier colonies have been reporting problems," he explained. "Ships disappearing, outposts going silent. The Council is calling it minor pirate activity, but the pattern suggests something much worse." "How much worse?" Derek asked as he leaned forward to study the map. "3 outposts went completely dark in the last month," Jake said quietly. "The Council sent peacekeeping forces to investigate. None of those forces returned. Not a single ship. Not a single distress call after they arrived." The room went silent. Everyone understood what that meant. Pirates did not have the capability to destroy entire peacekeeping fleets without those fleets getting off at least one emergency transmission. "What do you think it is?" Ryan asked. Jake pulled up another file. This one was marked with the highest security classification Earth possessed. "There are things in the old records," he said. "Things the Council does not talk about. Ancient threats that were supposed to be extinct or pushed so far beyond the galactic rim that they would never return. I think one of those threats has come back." "So what do we do?" Sophie asked. "We are banned from military operations. If we violate that ban, the Council could cut us off completely. No more trade. No more access to their technology. Earth would be isolated." "We wait," Jake said firmly. "We watch everything that happens. We prepare our forces. We gather every bit of intelligence we can find. And when the Council finally realizes they need help and they have no choice but to ask us, we will be ready to respond." "What if they do not ask?" Derek said. "What if their pride kills them before they admit they need human help?" "Then the galaxy will learn a hard lesson," Jake replied. "But I do not think it will come to that. Whatever is out there in the frontier, it is going to force their hand, probably sooner than any of us expect." Lisa had been quiet throughout the meeting. Now she spoke up. "I have been reviewing the tactical reports from the incidents Jake mentioned. The pattern is consistent with something we studied in the restricted archives. A species called the Kralvex. They were supposed to have been driven back 5,000 years ago by a coalition of the oldest races in the Council." "I have heard that name," Ryan said slowly. "They were a hive mind species. They consumed entire worlds, stripped them of all resources and all life. The records say they were defeated," Sophie added. "Pushed so far back that they could never threaten the galaxy again." "Records can be wrong," Lisa said. "Or things that were defeated can rebuild and grow stronger. If the Kralvex have returned and if they are as dangerous as the old records suggest, then the Council is going to face an enemy that their standard tactics cannot defeat." Jake looked at each of his officers in turn. "Then, we prepare for that possibility. We analyze everything we know about the Kralvex. We develop tactics and weapons that can counter them. And we wait for the call that we know is coming." The meeting continued late into the night. Plans were made. Resources were allocated. Messages were sent to Earth Command, requesting additional forces and equipment. Everything was done quietly and carefully to avoid drawing attention from Council observers. Outside the embassy compound, the alien city glowed with thousands of lights from hundreds of different technologies. Ships came and went from the spaceport. Life continued as normal, but Jake knew that normal was about to end. Somewhere out in the dark between the stars, something ancient and terrible was moving, and when it arrived, the galaxy would discover that banning humanity from the fight was the worst mistake they could have made. 6 weeks passed since the Council banned humans from military operations, and then the first distress call came screaming across the emergency channels. The signal originated from Threshold Prime, which was a mining colony on the edge of Council space. The message was broken and filled with static, but the terror in the voices was clear enough. "Unknown vessels approaching fast," the transmission said between bursts of interference. "Our shields are failing. They are cutting through the station defenses like they are not even there. We need help. We need immediate assistance. Oh God, they are inside the habitat modules. They are cutting through everything and everyone. Please someone help us before." Then nothing but silence. The Galactic Council met in emergency session within hours. Velkoth looked less confident than he had 6 weeks ago. His crystalline body seemed dimmer somehow, as if the light inside him had faded. "We are dispatching the Kreth Third Fleet to investigate," he announced. "War Master Thelkon will command the operation. His fleet consists of 12 capital ships equipped with our most advanced shield technology and quantum displacement weapons. Whatever attacked Threshold Prime will be dealt with swiftly." In the Earth Orbital Command Center high above the planet, Jake and his team monitored everything through their intelligence network. Sophie had managed to tap into several Council communication channels without them knowing. It was technically illegal, but Jake had stopped caring about technicalities the moment the Council banned humanity from protecting itself and others. "Third Fleet just entered hyperspace," Ryan reported from his console. "They will reach Threshold System in approximately 4 hours. I am picking up their tactical feed now." The holographic display showed the Kreth fleet moving through the distorted space of faster-than-light travel, 12 massive warships each over a kilometer long. Their hulls gleamed with the advanced alloys that the Kreth had perfected over centuries. Their shield generators created overlapping fields of protection that could supposedly stop anything short of a star going supernova. Jake studied the formation. It was textbook perfect. Exactly what any military academy in the galaxy would teach. The heavy cruisers in the front, the carriers in the middle, the destroyers screening the flanks. Everything by the book and completely predictable. "They are going to get slaughtered," he said quietly. Lisa looked up from her own display. "You think whatever hit Threshold Prime is that dangerous?" "I think that whatever it is, it does not fight by the Council playbook," Jake replied. "And anyone who fights by the book against an enemy that does not is going to lose badly." 4 hours later, the Third Fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Threshold System. The tactical feed showed what was left of the mining colony. Debris floated everywhere: shattered station modules, destroyed defense platforms, escape pods that had been cut open like tin cans. There were no life signs, no emergency beacons, just wreckage and silence. War Master Thelkon sounded calm and professional on the command channel. "All ships maintain formation. Sensors to maximum range. Identify any threats immediately." For several minutes, nothing happened. The fleet moved slowly toward the remains of the colony. Sensors swept the system looking for anything that might explain the destruction. Contact came the call from one of the Kreth sensor operators. Multiple vessels emerging from the shadow of the fourth planet. Configuration unknown. Not matching any database entries. The holographic display updated to show the new contacts. The vessels that appeared made everyone in Earth Command Center lean forward to look closer. They were unlike anything in the galactic records. The ships moved with a flowing grace that seemed almost organic. Their hulls were dark and seemed to shift and change as they moved. Purple energy crackled along their surfaces like lightning trapped under skin. Sophie pulled up every file she had on ancient threats and extinct species. Her fingers moved quickly across her keyboard as she searched for matches. "There," she said suddenly. "The Kralvex. It has to be them." The name sent a chill through everyone who heard it. The Kralvex were mentioned in the oldest council records. A hive mind species that had nearly consumed the entire galaxy 5,000 years ago. It had taken a coalition of every spacefaring race working together to drive them back beyond the galactic rim. The records said they had been destroyed completely, but obviously the records were wrong. Ryan pulled up what little information existed about Kralvex technology and tactics. What he read made his blood run cold. "Their ships are partially biological," he said. "They can repair damage almost instantly by regrowing tissue. Their weapons phase through conventional shields by matching the quantum frequency of the target. And they fight as a single coordinated intelligence. No individual ship commanders. No chain of command that can be disrupted. Just one massive mind controlling everything." On the tactical feed, the Kralvex ships moved to intercept the Third Fleet. There were 15 of them against 12 Kreth vessels. Not overwhelming odds by normal calculations, but these were not normal circumstances. "All ships prepare for combat," War Master Thelkon ordered. "Shields to maximum, weapons free. Target the lead vessels and fire on my command. The Kreth fleet executed the order perfectly. Quantum displacement weapons fired in coordinated salvos. The beams of twisted space-time should have torn the Kralvex ships apart at the molecular level. They were the most powerful weapons the Council possessed. The beams hit the Kralvex vessels and passed right through them. The purple energy crackling on the hull surfaces absorbed the quantum distortion and converted it into something else. The Kralvex ships did not even slow down. "Impossible," Thelkan said, and for the first time his voice carried a hint of fear. "Increase power to shields. All vessels close formation and prepare for evasive maneuvers." The Kralvex opened fire. Their weapons were like nothing the Kreth had encountered before. Beams of bioplasma that seemed alive and hungry shot across the space between the fleets. When they hit the Kreth shields, the plasma did not splash against them. Instead, it phased through the energy barriers as if they were not there at all and struck the hull plating directly. The first Kreth cruiser lasted less than a minute. The bioplasma melted through the advanced alloy hull like acid. Secondary explosions rippled along the ship length as internal systems failed. The crew tried to evacuate, but the Kralvex were already moving to intercept the escape pods. Collector beams shot out from the organic ships and pulled the pods in like a fisherman reeling in a catch. Jake watched with growing horror as the battle unfolded. The Third Fleet tried everything. They attempted to overwhelm the Kralvex with focused fire. They tried scatter patterns to divide enemy attention. They deployed electronic countermeasures and created sensor shadows. Nothing worked. The Kralvex adapted to every tactic within seconds. Their hive mind processed information and shared it across all vessels instantly. One by one, the Kreth ships died. Their shields were useless. Their weapons could not penetrate Kralvex defenses. Their tactics were predictable and easily countered. In 20 minutes, 11 of the 12 capital ships were destroyed or disabled. Only a small scout vessel managed to escape by jumping to hyperspace the moment it became clear the battle was lost. The tactical feed showed the final moments. Kreth crew members floating in space after their ships broke apart. Kralvex collector beams sweeping up the survivors, not to rescue them but to harvest them for whatever the hive mind wanted. Then the feed cut to static as the last ship was destroyed. The Earth Command Center was silent. Everyone had watched species they knew and sometimes respected get butchered by an enemy that seemed unstoppable. "Get me a direct line to the council chamber," Jake said quietly. "They need to see this. All of it. Right now." The Galactic Council reconvened an emergency session, but this time the mood was completely different. Velkoth stood at the podium, but his usual confidence was gone. His crystalline body actually trembled slightly as he spoke. "We face an extinction-level threat," he announced. "The Kralvex have returned, and they are stronger than the ancient records indicated. We must mobilize every fleet and every weapon we possess. We must." "What about humanity?" Jake's voice cut through the chamber like a knife. He was standing in the human section with his arms crossed. His expression was neutral, but his eyes were hard. "The ban remains in effect," Velkoth said, but his voice lacked conviction. "This is a council matter, and you are going to die," Jake said flatly. "All of you. Every species in this chamber will be extinct within a year if you continue to fight the Kralvex the way you just tried to fight them. Your shields do not work. Your weapons cannot penetrate their defenses. Your tactics are predictable. You will lose every single battle, and you believe human tactics would succeed where ours failed?" Quarash asked. His gaseous form pulsed with colors that indicated both fear and indignation. "I believe we have options you have not considered," Jake replied. "I believe we understand warfare in ways you have forgotten. But you are going to have to swallow your pride and ask for our help." The chamber erupted in argument. Some species demanded that the ban be lifted immediately. Others insisted that human involvement would only make things worse. The debate raged for hours while out on the frontier, more colonies went silent. Finally, a Zephrani coordinator named Malthos spoke. His words carried weight because his species had been members. The UES Valkyrie cut through hyperspace like a knife through water, and its crew of 93 humans prepared for combat in a way that would have seemed strange to any galactic observer. Captain Ryan Brooks stood on the bridge reviewing the tactical data one more time. The research station in the Helios sector was surrounded by 15 Kralvex hunter ships, and its shields were down to 12%. The station had maybe 6 hours before complete failure, and the 37 scientists trapped inside would die. Sophie stood at the communications console coordinating with the Marine teams below decks. She had already calculated attack vectors and identified the weaknesses in the Kralvex formation that the Council forces would never have noticed. Intel shows the Kralvex are maintaining a standard encirclement pattern, she reported. They are focused entirely on breaking through the station shields. All their sensors are pointed inward at their target, which means they are not watching their backs, Ryan said with a slight smile. They expect their enemies to announce themselves, to light up on sensors, to follow standard approach protocols, and we are going to do the exact opposite. Sophie finished his thought. Ryan activated the ship-wide communication system. All hands, this is the captain speaking. In 15 minutes we drop out of hyperspace in the Helios sector. What we are about to do has not been attempted in galactic warfare, because frankly the Council species think it is too dangerous and too unpredictable. They think it is too human. He paused and looked around the bridge at his crew. They were young, and most of them had never seen real combat before. But they were ready. We are going dark, he continued. Full stealth protocols. No shields. Minimal power signature. We coast in on ballistic trajectory only. No active sensors. No communications. We become invisible. We become ghosts. And when we strike, we hit them so hard and so fast they will not have time to understand what killed them. Down in the Marine Bay, Major Derek Cole was giving his own briefing to the 20 Marines who would board the research station. They stood in their powered armor checking weapons that looked primitive compared to the energy rifles used by Council forces. These were kinetic accelerators, railguns, mass drivers, weapons that threw pieces of metal at incredible speeds using magnetic fields and simple physics. Remember what we trained for, Derek said. The Kralvex hunt by energy signature. Their entire sensor network is designed to detect shields and power sources and weapons fire, so we are going cold. Our armor runs on chemical batteries, not fusion cores. Our weapons use magnets and momentum, not plasma or lasers. We are going to be invisible to them until we start shooting. A young Marine named Ben Carter raised his hand. Sir, I understand the theory, but their bioarmor regenerates damage. How do we stop something that can heal itself? Good question, Ben Derek replied. Their armor regenerates when it is connected to their ship's energy system. It needs time and power to repair, but a tungsten slug moving at 3 kilometers per second does not give it time. The slug punches through before the regeneration can even start. We are not trying to out-tech them. We are going back to basics, simple physics. Mass times velocity equals dead alien. The Valkyrie dropped out of hyperspace at the very edge of the Helios system. Immediately, the reactor powered down to barely above background radiation levels. The shield generators went offline. Even life support switched to backup chemical systems that produced no electromagnetic signature. The ship went completely dark. On passive sensors, only the Valkyrie drifted toward the besieged research station. To any active scan, it would look like a piece of debris or a dead hulk. The Kralvex ships continued their assault on the station, completely unaware that death was approaching from behind. Back on the Council observation platform, dozens of species watched the tactical display with confusion and growing skepticism. I do not see the human vessel, Quarash said. His gaseous form pulsed with uncertain colors. Have they already been destroyed? Velkoth adjusted his instruments, trying to get a reading. No, they are simply not broadcasting any detectable signature. Most irregular. How can they fight if they cannot use their sensors or shields? Perhaps that is the point, Malthus suggested quietly. Perhaps they are doing something we have forgotten how to do. The Valkyrie coasted closer. 50,000 kilometers. 40,000. 30,000. The Kralvex formation remained focused on the dying research station. Their bioplasma beams continued to slowly erode the last shields protecting the scientists inside. Range 20,000 kilometers, Sophie reported in a whisper, even though no one outside the ship could possibly hear them. Kralvex formation holding steady. They have not detected us. Weapons hot, Ryan ordered. Target the lead vessels. Firing solution Delta 7, sir, that puts us at extreme close range. A young ensign said nervously. We will be vulnerable if they return fire. We will be vulnerable if we give them time to react, Ryan corrected. Speed and surprise, ensign. That is our advantage. They expect to see us coming from far away. They expect time to analyze and respond. We are not giving them that time. At 10,000 kilometers, Ryan gave the order. Go loud, full power. Light them up. The Valkyrie burst into life like a star being born. The reactor went to full output in less than a second. Shields snapped into place at maximum strength. Every weapon system came online simultaneously. The ship went from invisible to blazing on every sensor band in existence. The Kralvex ships detected the sudden energy spike and began to turn. Their organic hulls rippled as weapon ports opened and bioplasma began to charge. But organic systems, even enhanced ones, need time to react. Time to process. Time to aim. They did not have that time. Fire, Ryan commanded. The Valkyrie railguns opened up. Each gun fired a tungsten slug weighing 3 tons and accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed. The slugs crossed the distance between the ships in heartbeats. The first Kralvex vessel did not even complete its turn before 3 slugs punched through its hull. The projectiles did not explode. They did not need to. The kinetic energy alone was devastating. The slugs tore through the bioarmor, through the internal organs, through the far side of the hull, and out into space. The Kralvex ship shuddered once and went dark. Target 2, Ryan called. Fire, the pattern repeated. The Kralvex had spent 5,000 years developing defenses against energy weapons. Their biofields could absorb plasma. Their hulls could deflect lasers. Their armor could regenerate from particle beam damage. But none of that mattered against simple mass moving at relativistic speeds. The tungsten slugs did not care about shields or biofields or regeneration. They just punched through everything. In 90 seconds, 7 Kralvex ships were destroyed or crippled. The remaining 8 finally completed their turn and began to scatter, but the Valkyrie targeting computer had already predicted their escape vectors. More railgun fire reached out. More ships died. Launch boarding teams, Ryan ordered. The marine drop pods shot out from the Valkyrie. They were small and stealthy, using compressed gas thrusters instead of fusion drives. The Kralvex ships, confused and reeling from the unexpected assault, failed to intercept them. The pods arced toward the research station and locked onto the hull with magnetic clamps. Derek was first out of his pod. His team poured into the docking bay, weapons ready. What they found inside was a nightmare. Kralvex drones had breached the outer sections. These were smaller versions of the ships, about the size of large dogs with too many legs and mandibles that dripped corrosive fluid. The walls were covered in organic matter that pulsed and grew, spreading like cancer through the station. Sector by sector, Derek commanded. Clear and burn. Do not let that biomatter spread. The Marines moved with precision and purpose. Their kinetic weapons tore through the drones. When a drone fell, they followed up with incendiary grenades that burned at temperatures hot enough to sterilize the organic infestation, where Council forces would have used energy weapons that the Kralvex could absorb and feed on. The humans used fire and metal and chemistry. Ben Carter found himself facing a Kralvex warrior drone twice his size. Its mandibles opened wide, showing rows of crystalline teeth designed to shear through metal and bone. Ben did not panic. His training took over. He did not aim for center mass where the creature had redundant organs. He aimed for the joints where biology could not compensate for structural failure. 3 rounds from his rail rifle. The joints shattered. The drone collapsed. Core Lab 50 meters, Sophie voice crackled in their helmet radios. You have got survivors, but something big is coming from Section 7. How big? Derek asked. Bigger than your drop pod, Sophie replied grimly. Derek team reached the core lab just as the blast doors began to buckle. Something massive was forcing its way through. The Marines set up defensive positions with their heavy weapons trained on the failing door. When it finally broke, what came through was a Kralvex queen. It was enormous, filling the entire corridor. Its psychic presence pressed down on their minds like a physical weight, trying to crush their thoughts and fill them with fear and despair. But humans had evolved on a world where psychic abilities did not exist. Their minds were isolated and individual in ways that made them naturally resistant to mental attacks. The Kralvex hive mind could not easily penetrate that isolation. Open fire, Derek shouted. 20 Marines unleashed everything they had. High explosive. While Derek and his Marines were securing the research station, Captain Ryan Brooks faced a new problem in space. 8 Kralvex ships remained from the original 15, and they were beginning to coordinate their response. The Valkyrie was fast and well-armed but outnumbered, and Ryan knew that the Kralvex hive mind was learning from every second of combat. Captain, the Kralvex ships are forming a biofield matrix. Sophie warned from her console. If they complete it, they will create a localized dead zone. No electronics will function. No shields. No computers. Nothing mechanical will work inside the field. Time to completion, Ryan asked. 3 minutes, she replied. Ryan's mind raced through options. The Kralvex expected their enemies to panic when technology failed. They expected ships to become helpless drifting targets when their advanced systems went offline. But humans had not always had advanced technology. For most of their history, they had fought with simple tools and simple methods. All hands prepare for manual control, Ryan ordered. Helm. I want a ballistic trajectory plotted through the center of their formation. Use the mechanical backup navigation system. Sir, without guidance systems, the ensign at weapons control said hesitantly. We are not going to guide them, Ryan interrupted. We are going to point and shoot. Just like our ancestors did 600 years ago when they first went into space. Trust your training and trust basic physics. The Valkyrie reactor powered down to minimum output. The main computer system switched to a mechanical backup that would not have been out of place on a submarine from Earth 20th century. The ship still had basic controls, but everything was manual. No artificial intelligence. No computer-assisted targeting. Just humans making calculations in their heads and turning physical wheels and pulling mechanical levers. When the Kralvex biofield activated, it washed over the Valkyrie like an invisible wave. Every advanced system died instantly. The bridge lights went out, leaving only emergency chemical glow sticks. The holographic displays vanished. Even the artificial gravity failed, and everyone not strapped down began to float. In the sudden darkness and silence, Ryan spoke calmly. Weapons officer, you have firing authorization. Launch all missiles. The weapons officer pulled a mechanical lever. Below decks, 40 missiles launched from their tubes using simple compressed gas. Each missile was armed with a contact fuse that required no electronics. Just a spring-loaded mechanism that would trigger on physical impact. The missiles did not have guidance systems or targeting computers. They were simply pointed in the right direction and pushed, but Ryan had calculated the trajectory perfectly. The Kralvex ships, confident that the human vessel was now helpless, did not attempt evasive maneuvers. They held formation, maintaining the biofield that was supposed to guarantee their victory. The missiles reached them in seconds. The warheads were not exotic energy weapons or quantum disruptors. They were simple chemical explosives, high-grade military compounds that had been used on Earth for centuries. When they detonated, the force of the explosions rippled through the biofield as if it was not even there. 6 Kralvex ships died in the first salvo. Their organic hulls ruptured. Atmosphere and biological matter vented into space. The ships convulsed and went dark. The remaining 2 Kralvex vessels finally understood the danger they were in. They broke formation and tried to flee, but Derek Marines had been busy while the space battle was happening. They had deployed mines around the research station perimeter. Old-fashioned proximity mines that used simple motion sensors and required no power source beyond a chemical battery and a spring mechanism. The fleeing Kralvex ships hit the minefield at full speed. The mines detonated on contact. The explosions tore open the hulls and sent the ships tumbling out of control. One exploded completely. The other went dark and began to drift. On the Valkyrie bridge, the biofield suddenly collapsed as the last Kralvex ship died. Power began returning to the advanced systems. Lights flickered back on. The computer rebooted. Gravity returned and everyone who had been floating dropped back to the deck. Ryan keyed the ship-wide comm. All stations report status. One by one, the departments checked in. Minor damage to some systems, a few injuries from the gravity failure, but overall the ship was intact and functional. Station secure, Derek's voice came over the radio. All 37 scientists are alive and ready for extraction. The Kralvex presence has been eliminated. Roger, that, Ryan replied. Prepare for dust-off. We are coming to get you. Sophie was already pulling up the sensor data from the entire engagement. Her fingers moved quickly across her console as she compiled everything into a report. We need to get this tactical data to the Council immediately, she said. They need to see exactly how we won this fight. Ryan nodded. Send it through. Full tactical recording. Let them see everything. Back on the Council observation platform, the silence was absolute. Every species representative had watched the battle unfold on their displays. They had seen the human ship go dark when the biofield activated. They had assumed, like the Kralvex, that the humans were finished, and then they had watched in amazement as the Valkyrie continued to fight, using methods that seemed impossibly primitive, but were devastatingly effective. Velkoth's crystalline body seemed dimmer than usual. His voice was quiet when he finally spoke. "I do not understand. How did they fight without their technology? How did they aim their weapons without computers? How did they navigate without sensors?" "Because they remember how it was done before technology existed," Malthus replied. The Zafrani coordinator actually sounded impressed. "Our species developed advanced technology early in our evolution. We never had to struggle and fight with primitive tools, but humans spent thousands of years learning to navigate by stars, to calculate trajectories in their heads, to aim weapons using only their eyes and their experience. They did not forget those skills when they gained technology. They simply added new skills on top of the old ones. The humans can fight at any technology level," Quarash said slowly. His gaseous form pulsed with colors that indicated deep thought. "If you strip away their advanced systems, they simply fight with basic systems. If you take away their energy weapons, they use kinetic weapons. If you disable their computers, they use their minds. They adapt down instead of becoming helpless. And that is why they beat the Kralvex," another delegate said. "The Kralvex evolved to counter advanced technology. Their biofields disable electronics. Their armor resists energy weapons. Their hive mind processes information faster than individual AIs. But none of that matters against someone who can fight effectively at a lower technology level." The rescued scientists arrived at the council station 3 days later. They gave testimony about what they had witnessed. The human Marines moving through the station with absolute confidence even when surrounded by Kralvex drones. The way they used fire and metal instead of energy weapons. The calm professionalism they showed even when facing a Kralvex queen. One of the scientists was a Kreth physicist named Velthar. He stood before the council and spoke clearly. "I have studied warfare for 60 standard years. I have analyzed thousands of battles. I believed I understood military tactics, but watching the humans fight taught me that I understood nothing. They do not fight the way we fight. They do not think the way we think. When we encounter a problem, we try to develop better technology to solve it. When humans encounter a problem, they ask, what is the simplest, most direct way to make the enemy stop moving? And then they do that thing with whatever tools they have available." The council chamber buzzed with conversation. Some species were impressed. Others were uncomfortable with the implications. A few looked genuinely frightened at the idea of what humans might be capable of if they ever decided to turn their methods against the council itself. Velkoth called for order. "The ban on human military participation is hereby lifted effective immediately. Furthermore, we formally request that humanity assist us in the war against the Kralvex." Jake stood in the human section. "There are conditions," he said firmly. "Name them," Velkoth replied. "First, complete intelligence sharing. No more secrets. No more classified archives. If there are threats out there, we need to know about them. Second, human tactical doctrine will be taught to all council military forces. Anyone who wants to survive will learn. Third, joint command structure. No more treating us as junior partners. We work together as equals." Around the chamber, delegates looked at each other. These were significant concessions. Secrets that had been kept for thousands of years would have to be revealed. Pride would have to be swallowed. Power would have to be shared. And finally, Jake continued. Respect. Not just for humanity, but for what every species brings to the fight. The Kreth build incredible shields. The Zafrani have unmatched sensors. The Varathian are amazing navigators. But you have to stop assuming that newer and more advanced is always better. Sometimes the old ways work because they have been tested over centuries of actual use. Velkoth was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. "Agreed. All of your conditions are accepted. Welcome to the war effort, Admiral Harrison. We are grateful for your assistance." Jake smiled, but his eyes were hard. "Do not be grateful yet. Be ready to learn, because we are going to teach this galaxy how to really fight." The weeks following the Helios sector rescue changed everything across the galaxy. Human advisors spread out to dozens of worlds teaching methods that the council species had either forgotten or never learned in the first place. Major Derek Cole found himself on the Kreth homeworld standing in front of 300 Kreth warriors who towered over him with their crystalline bodies catching the light. "Your shields are excellent," Derek told them, "the best in the galaxy. But you have become dependent on them. When your shields fail, you panic because you have forgotten how to fight without them. One of the Kreth warriors clicked forward. His translator made his words sound defensive. Our shields do not fail. They are designed to withstand any conventional attack. The Kralvex weapons are not conventional, Derek replied calmly. They phase through your shields like they are not even there, so you need to learn how to fight as if you have no shields at all. You need to learn close combat, hand to hand, weapon to weapon, the kind of fighting that does not rely on technology. The Kreth warriors looked at each other uncertainly. Their species had used energy shields for over 2,000 years. The idea of fighting without them seemed almost impossible. Derek activated a holographic display showing footage from the research station rescue. Watch how my Marines moved. They assumed their armor could fail at any moment. They assumed their weapons might malfunction. They had backup plans for their backup plans. That is not cowardice. That is tactical thinking. Over the following days, Derek put the Kreth through training that was brutal and humbling. He taught them about cover and concealment, about moving silently, about using terrain, about reading an enemy movements and predicting their next action. Skills that humans had learned over thousands of years of warfare with primitive weapons. On the Zephrani homeworld, Lieutenant Sophie Adams worked with their intelligence services. The Zephrani had incredible sensor technology that could detect a single ship from halfway across the galaxy. But they had never considered using stealth as an offensive tactic. You scan for everything, Sophie explained to a room full of Zephrani analysts. You watch for energy signatures and metal and life signs. But what if your enemy knows that? What if they deliberately minimize all those signatures? Impossible, one of the Zephrani said. His gaseous form pulsed with skepticism. No species can function without detectable energy output. Sophie pulled up the sensor logs from the Valkyrie approach to the Helios sector. This is our ship approaching 15 Kralvex vessels. Tell me when you first detect us. The Zephrani analysts studied the data carefully. Long minutes passed. Finally, one of them spoke hesitantly. We detect the energy spike at 10,000 kilometers when you powered up for attack. Before that, there is nothing, exactly, Sophie said. We were there the whole time, drifting in on minimal power, using passive sensors only. You cannot find what is not looking for you. The Kralvex hunt by energy signature, so we gave them no signature to hunt. The Zephrani began to understand the implications. Their entire military doctrine assumed that both sides could see each other clearly. The idea of fighting blind was foreign to them, but Sophie showed them how humans had fought naval battles in fog and storms, long before space travel existed, how they had developed tactics for when you could not see the enemy, but knew they were out there somewhere. Captain Ryan Brooks spent his time at the Galactic War Academy, teaching a course on adaptive strategy. His classroom was filled with officers from 24 different species. Some were eager to learn. Others were clearly resentful that they had to take lessons from a species that had been part of the Council for only 30 years. Tactical doctrine is important, Ryan told them. It gives you a framework to operate within. But the moment you become completely dependent on doctrine, you become predictable, and predictable enemies are dead enemies. He showed them battle footage of the Kreth Third Fleet being destroyed by the Kralvex. This fleet followed perfect doctrine. Every ship in the correct position, every response exactly as the manual dictated. And they were wiped out in 20 minutes. Why? Because the Kralvex studied your doctrine, a Varathian officer said quietly. They knew what you would do before you did it, exactly, Ryan replied. Military doctrine is written by people who survived previous wars. It teaches you what worked in the past, but your next enemy has also studied those same wars. They know what you are going to do. So you have to be willing to break doctrine when the situation demands it. Over the following months, the tide of the war began to shift. Kralvex forces that had been pushing deeper into Council space met resistance they could not easily overcome. Council ships started using stealth approaches. They deployed kinetic weapons alongside their energy weapons. They stopped relying entirely on their shields and started using tactics that assumed their technology could fail. The Kralvex adapted too, because their hive mind learned from every engagement. But adaptation took time, and humans were very good at changing tactics faster than the enemy could respond. What worked in one battle might not work in the next. Human commanders taught Council forces to be flexible and creative, to try new things, to take calculated risks. Not every battle was a victory. Not every tactic worked. Good people died, including humans who gave their lives protecting species that had mocked them only months before. But slowly and steadily, the Kralvex advance was stopped and then pushed back. 6 months after the ban was lifted, Velkoth stood before the council to deliver a progress report. His crystalline body seemed brighter now, more confident. The Kralvex incursion in the Theta sector has been repelled, he announced. Combined human and Kreth task forces used kinetic bombardment, followed by energy weapon saturation. The Kralvex hive ships were destroyed before they could adapt to either attack method. We have achieved our first major victory. The chamber filled with sounds of approval from dozens of different species. But Velkoth raised one crystal limb for silence. We must acknowledge the truth, he continued. We would have lost this war if not for humanity. Not because they have better technology, not because they are stronger or faster or smarter, but because they understand something we had forgotten. They understand that survival is not about having the best tools. It is about having the will to use whatever you have to protect what matters. Jake sat in the human section watching the council members come to terms with their new reality. Next to him, Lisa leaned over and spoke quietly. They are learning. They were always capable of learning, Jake replied. They just needed to be humble enough to listen, and desperate enough to try. On Earth, in a small apartment overlooking the Pacific Ocean, Corporal Ben Carter sat with his family watching the news broadcasts from across the galaxy. His younger sister looked up at him with wide eyes full of wonder. You really fought those things, she asked. I did, Ben said. And we won. Not because we were the strongest or had the best weapons, but because we remembered something important. What is that? His sister asked. That you do not need to be the most advanced to win, he replied. You just need to understand your strengths and your enemy weaknesses. The council species had amazing technology, but they forgot how to fight without it. We never forgot because for most of our history, we did not have advanced technology. We learned to fight with rocks and sticks and fire. When we got better tools, we kept those old lessons. We just added new ones on top. His sister thought about that for a moment. So you are saying being primitive helped you? Ben smiled. Not primitive. Fundamental. There is a difference. Primitive means you do not know better. Fundamental means you understand the basics so well that you can build anything on top of them. And when someone strips away all the advanced stuff, you still know how to function. Across the galaxy, human instructors continued their work. Derek taught Kreth warriors about honor in defeat and fighting when everything seemed hopeless. Sophie showed Zephyrini analysts how to find patterns in chaos. Ryan trained council officers to think creatively and break their own rules when necessary. The Kralvex remained a threat. They were not defeated and would not be defeated easily, but they were no longer unstoppable. The galaxy had learned, had adapted, had grown. In the council chambers, new policies were implemented. Every military vessel was required to have manual backup systems. Every soldier trained in kinetic weapons alongside energy weapons. Every tactical doctrine included sections on fighting without technology. The changes came slowly because old habits die hard, but they came. Jake stood on the observation deck of Earth Orbital Command looking down at the blue and green planet below. Lisa joined him carrying 2 cups of coffee. Do you think they really understand now? She asked, handing him a cup. Some of them do, Jake replied. Others are just going through the motions because they know they have to. But that is okay. Understanding can come later. Right now, they just need to survive. And we are giving them the tools to do that. The galaxy does not need more advanced technology, Lisa said. It needs people who remember that technology is just a tool. The real weapon is up here. She tapped her head. And here Jake added, tapping his chest over his heart. The will to survive. The refusal to give up even when everything looks hopeless. That is what makes humans dangerous. Not our weapons or our ships or our tactics, but our absolute stubborn refusal to accept defeat. They stood together looking.